Good morning, GPM. Welcome to another day of April devotion. We're going through the Gospel of John, one chapter a day, and we're unpacking it on a daily basis. So today we're in John chapter 6, and it's very early in the morning right now, and I am hungry. And imagine yourself for a second if you were in the first century and you've been out in the field, out working, and then you hear news that there's this great prophet, there's this great teacher called Jesus, and you go and he's teaching and preaching, and you've never heard anything like this, and you don't realize the time that have passed since you've got there, and you hear your stomach rumbling and you're hungry. And that was the case for many, many people, thousands of people that were listening to Jesus, and Jesus, understanding that they were hungry, tells his disciples to get food for the people that was there, right? Get food for the people that were there, and so we all know a little boy brings up his lunchbox, just 5 loaves and 2 fish, right? These aren't like big puffy loaves. These are just like cracker kind of things. But anyway, Jesus performs a miracle. He performs a sign that feeds the 5,000 people, and the reaction of these people, as you might imagine, is spectacular. They start calling him a prophet who is to come into the world. Verse 14, it says, "This truly is the prophet who is to come into the world." And what you need to realize here is they're just not talking about any prophet. They're not calling Jesus just some random prophet, but they're pointing towards Jesus being Moses. Because if you understand, in the Old Testament, God said through his prophets that there is going to be a time where a prophet like Moses is going to come. And that's going to signal the coming of the kingdom of God. And so these people are ecstatic. They're excited. The prophet like Moses is here. Now we could start the kingdom of God. And realizing this, Jesus, because his time was not yet there, he goes away. And then he comes back the next day. And the people, their reaction is this. When Jesus came back in verse 25, they said they found him on the other side of the lake, and they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Right? The question isn't when did you come here? No, the question is, what are you doing here? You are the great prophet like Moses. Let's go up into Jerusalem and start this kingdom, because you have performed a great miracle that could satisfy us all. And so and as I was reflecting on this, I think what really spoke into these people's heart is that they've been told this story of the manna that rained down from heaven, right? The manna that rained down from heaven from their forefathers for centuries. And here they are. They see how they've heard how Moses had provided for their ancestors through the desert. 40 years in the desert, eating nothing but like this biscuit-like things. Now imagine if food like this can be sustained for a nation for 40 years. Imagine what kind of greater thing a prophet like Moses at the end of the time would bring. And it's that kind of expectation they were looking for Jesus. And my conclusion is this today, as I was wrapping this up, as I was thinking about it. These people were looking for somebody to give them the food. These people were looking for somebody to give them the blessing, to give them a country, to give them a kingdom, to give them safety, financial safety, emotional safety. And sometimes in our lives, I think we look towards Jesus with the same idea. We see Jesus and we ask him, "Lord, would you give me XYZ? Would you give me safety? Would you give me comfort? Would you give me peace? Would you give me life? Would you give me?" And what we don't realize is, yes, Jesus does give us these blessings in our lives, but it's not that Jesus doesn't give the blessing, that it just doesn't end there. He is the blessing. He is the life. These people were looking for Jesus to give them bread. What they failed to realize is that Jesus was the bread itself. And Jesus says that here in the next verse. He says in verse 35, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst." The same words that he spoke to the Samaritan woman. what we don't realize, and what these people don't realize, is that Jesus, he wasn't just the manna that came down from heaven that God sent. It's a completely different level. He is, right? He is the bread of life that God sent. And as the ancestors ate the manna to sustain them for 40 years, Jesus, as we eat Jesus, that is to believe in him and to come to him, we won't be just sustained in our daily life, we'll be sustained until all eternity, right? And so here we are in the Gospel of John. Once again, I told you guys, John presents us with these signs. He's going to give us two different opinions, right? These people who are seeking Jesus just to get their belly full, and this other side of the people who truly see Jesus for who he is, and we need to wrestle with that. Who is Jesus? What does it mean that he's the bread of life? He's not just the bread giver, he is the bread of life. He's not just the he's not just he doesn't just give us the blessing, that he is the blessing. He doesn't just give us life, he is life. And so in this time where we feel like we've kind of lost everything in this world, where you're kind of losing purpose, you're kind of going a little crazy, I want you guys to really think about that. Who is Jesus to you? What does it mean for him to be the bread of life? Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to tomorrow as we continue to unpack the Gospel of John, one chapter a day.